Before the spotlight, before the stadium crowds chanting his name, before the millions of digital streams and the platinum plaques and the festival stages built in his honor, before any of that, there was a boy standing at a window in Cleveland, Ohio, wondering why the world had taken his father away. Scott Ramon Seguro Mescudi was born on January 30th, 1984, the youngest of 4 siblings in a tightly knit but hardworking family. His father, Lindberg Mescudi, carried the layered heritage of Native American and Mexican roots. His mother, Elsie, was an African-American choir teacher whose voice and presence created a musical hum within the home long before her youngest son picked up a pen and notebook. Music wasn't forced on Scott. It lived quietly in the walls. His mother's influence was steady, warm, a reminder that art could be a language. But his father offered something else, a sense of discipline, curiosity, and an intellectual openness that encouraged young Scott to question the world, to wonder, to dream. Cleveland wasn't an easy place, but it was real. It was gray in winter, buzzing with life in summer, and every corner of the neighborhood seemed to carry the echoes of dreams both fulfilled and failed. Scott grew up in Shaker Heights and later Solon, moving between suburban landscapes. He was a quiet child, observant, sometimes withdrawn, the kind of kid who watched other kids play rather than joining in immediately. He had a mind that wandered. When he was 11, his father died of cancer, and the axis of his world shifted. For Scott, grief hit with a silence that settled deep in his chest. There were questions, fears, nights he couldn't sleep. But instead of collapsing, something within him began to build, slowly and quietly. He wanted to create, to express, to escape. But he didn't yet know how. He joined freestyle circles and rap battles, scribbling lyrics in spiral notebooks, experimenting with flows during bus rides home. Sometimes he joked with friends, calling himself Lil Scott. Later he tried Kid Mesk. He tested these identities like clothing, trying to figure out which one fit the person he sensed deep inside, but didn't yet completely understand. Eventually, he earned a GED after disciplinary issues pushed him out of traditional high school. A year at the University of Toledo followed, where he studied film, before he eventually dropped out. At one point, feeling directionless, he attempted to join the U.S. Navy. But a juvenile police record kept him from enlisting. The days began to blur together, and the path forward felt fogged. Yet beneath everything, the same quiet instinct kept whispering, "You're meant to create something." And so, he turned toward the only city that felt big enough to hold his ambitions: New York City. In 2006, with little more than determination, some clothes, and notebooks full of lyrics, Scott boarded a bus to New York City. He was 22. The skyline was overwhelming, beautiful, intimidating. But it didn't scare him. He felt, for the first time, that maybe he had come to the right place. He stayed with his uncle, jazz drummer Khalil Maddie, who lived in the South Bronx. It seemed like a blessing, family helping family. But as with many dreams, it wasn't as smooth as expected. Tensions grew. Arguments sparked. Eventually, Scott was asked to leave. Suddenly, he was nearly homeless in a city that didn't care who you were or where you came from. He found friendship in unexpected places. Producer Did Genius offered him not just camaraderie, but a place to stay and a studio to experiment in. Dot's parents opened their home to Scott under one condition. He had to promise to keep making music. That condition saved him. Cudi worked retail jobs, folding jeans, sweeping floors, stocking shelves, while spending every free hour writing songs. The city wasn't glamorous. It was gritty, exhausting, unforgiving. He lived in cramped apartments, walked miles in brutal weather, and faced rejection after rejection. But every struggle sharpened his hunger. Late nights in Brooklyn became creative marathons. Did Genius worked the boards. Cudi worked the mic. They experimented, blending hip-hop with alternative sounds, moody atmospheres, and emotional vulnerability. Out of that creative stew came a song that would change everything, titled Day and Night. Day and Night wasn't written to be a hit. It was written because Kid Cudi, the name he'd finally settled on, needed to express himself. The lyrics were simple but devastating. Day and night, I toss and turn. I keep stress in my mind. It was lonely and honest in a way hip-hop rarely allowed itself to be at the time. He uploaded it to MySpace in 2007. The internet did the rest. Underground blogs picked it up. DJs played it in clubs. Listeners shared it with friends. Suddenly, Cudi wasn't invisible anymore. The song reached Plain Pat, a key figure in the New York hip-hop scene, who introduced it to Kanye West. Kanye, always drawn to innovators, was captivated. He saw something in Cudi, something bold, emotional, and fresh. Cudi got signed to Kanye's goodmusic imprint. Doors opened. Opportunities expanded. And with that momentum, he and producer Emil Haney worked to create a mixtape that would introduce the world to a new kind of artist. Released in July 2008, A Kid Named Cudi wasn't a typical mixtape. It felt like a diary, a dream journal, a confession. It wove together atmospheric beats, existential pondering, and a voice that seemed to come from a young man floating between hope and despair. People connected with it immediately, especially kids who felt lonely, misunderstood, or stuck in their own heads. Cudi's sound made them feel seen. 1 year later, he dropped a debut album that would shift the landscape of hip-hop forever. In September 2009, Kid Cudi released Man on the Moon, The End of Day. It wasn't just an album, it was a narrative odyssey. Broken into acts, it followed a protagonist who wandered through dreams, nightmares, heartbreak, euphoria, anxiety, existential fear, all over the backdrop of spacey production. Cudi didn't rap like a typical MC. Sometimes he chanted, sometimes he crooned, sometimes he confessed in spoken word interludes. The album gave the world these songs: Day and Night, Pursuit of Happiness, Soundtrack to My Life, Make Her Say. These weren't just hits, they became generational anthems. Cudi was nominated for Grammys. The album went platinum many times over. Critics praised it. Fans embraced it as something deeply personal. Success brings its own storms. As Cudi rose into fame, old demons resurfaced. The grief, the loneliness, the pressure to perform, the fear of losing himself. He battled depression, anxiety, substance use. In interviews, he admitted that he struggled to reconcile Scott, the kid from Cleveland still coping with childhood trauma, with Cudi, the global superstar. But he didn't break, he evolved. He then released Man on the Moon 2, which plunged deeper into the darkness. He formed the rock band WZRD with Did Genius, creating an alternative album that surprised critics. He took on acting roles, from HBO's How to Make It in America to major films years later. He released genre-blending albums like Indicud, Satellite Flight, Passion, Pain, and Demon Slaying. Each chapter of his discography marked emotional evolution, not always understood, not always praised, but always true to himself. Cudi refused to be manufactured. He refused to play by an industry rulebook that didn't reflect who he was. He was too honest, too raw, too experimental. And this authenticity is exactly what drew millions to him. By the mid-2010s, it became clear that Kid Cudi wasn't just a musician. He was a blueprint. Artists like Travis Scott, Lil Uzi Vert, Logic, Jaden, Tyler, The Creator, Billie Eilish, Post Malone, and countless others cited him as an influence. The emo rap and psychedelic hip-hop waves wouldn't have existed the same way without Cudi's seeds planted early on. This connection gave Cudi a legacy that transcended albums and awards. Cudi's acting career grew steadily. He appeared in films and series, lending emotional subtleties to roles that resonated with his own story. He also ventured into producing, directing, fashion collaborations, launching the record label Wicked Awesome, founding Mad Solar, his production company. He became more than a rapper. He became a multidimensional artist. In 2022, Cudi made a surprising announcement. He was curating a festival in Cleveland called Moon Man's Landing. This wasn't just a business move, it was personal. Cleveland had shaped him, scarred him, nurtured him, challenged him. The festival was his way of planting a flag back home. not as the lost boy he once was, but as the man who had achieved everything he once dreamed in that suburban bedroom. Moon Man's Landing wasn't just a concert. It was a homecoming, a celebration, a full-circle moment. By 2025, Cudi entered a reflective phase in his life. He announced Cudi, the memoir set for release around his 40th birthday. The book promised unfiltered honesty, revisiting childhood trauma, the rager phase, addiction, low points, recovery, fatherhood, creativity, identity, spirituality, and the search for peace. For fans who had grown up with him, this was monumental. It felt like Cudi offering a final missing puzzle piece, the direct narrative behind the music that guided them through their darkest nights. He described the memoir as both painful and liberating to write, as revisiting old wounds but reclaiming them, as finally telling the story only he could tell. As of the mid-2020s, Kid Cudi stands at a rare place in culture. Respected, loved, influential, evolving. He continues to release music, sometimes experimental, sometimes classic Cudi. He acts. He produces. He collaborates. He is raising a daughter, working on new creative projects, living with more intentionality. Most importantly, he is healing. The Scott Mescudi who once felt lost, fatherless, adrift, unsure of his place in the world. That boy has grown into a man who understands both his wounds and his power. And he shares that understanding through his art. Cudi didn't become a legend because he was perfect. He became one because he wasn't, and he showed us the beauty in imperfection. Kid Cudi's influence is felt in music, fashion, film, and mental health advocacy. But even more importantly, it's felt in the hearts of fans who say things like, "You helped me survive. I didn't feel alone anymore. You saved my life." He created a soundscape for mental health before it was trendy, before it was openly discussed. In many ways, he paved the way for more honest conversations about depression and anxiety, especially among young men. Kid Cudi's journey is still unfolding, and he seems more grounded than ever. He once said that his ultimate goal was to help people feel less alone. And if one looks at the broad landscape of modern music and youth culture, it's clear he succeeded. But more importantly, he helped himself. He built a life he could stand in, a career he could be proud of, a legacy that will outlive him. We are proud to call Kid Cudi an Ohio is music legend.